Thanks for being here. This is for grades K to 8 in case you're in the right session. We do have another one this afternoon, and that one is for 9 to 12, just to make sure you're in the right session. My name is Sarah Chaja, and I'm the marketing manager at McGraw Hill. I'm your moderator for today. Along with me, I have my colleague Hamad Kalji, who should be joining me shortly. And we'll be your moderators if you need any support, you need any help. For example, the chat box right now. I'll be there to support you and help you, or if you face any technical difficulties, please let me know in the Q&A box now. Anyway, moving on, I'm so happy to have with us Jason Marshall, who is a senior national consultant at McGraw Hill. Thanks, Jason, for joining us today.
Always good to be with you.
Thank you. And I'm sure having Jason here is no surprise for those of you who have joined us for our previous webinars. He has taught middle high school science and has experience in technology and internet. He's done numerous workshops as well in the United States and abroad. And I'm so happy that he had the time to join us today again. So I'm glad about that. Moving on. I just want to quickly remind you that this webinar is being recorded, so you will get a recording of the session once it's completed. And also you will get a certificate once the webinar series is completed as well. So you'll get these through your email. And if you're facing any bandwidth issues, just make sure your Netflix, YouTube, and any gaming platform is closed on your end as well. We've got Q&A, so you can make sure you interact with us through the Q&A box while I check what's up with the chat box. So I might be away for a while fixing that for you. But in case a mic will not work. Someone has just said that the mic is not working. You will not be able to unmute yourself in this webinar. And that's just because we had a lot of registrations and there are about 150 participants in the session. So you might not be able to unmute yourself, but feel free to interact with us through the Q&A box. And like I said, I'm going to check what's up with the chat box. But as Jason said, and actually, Jason, I'm sorry, but I'm glad to know that it did not work out for you. It did work for you. That means I'm not the only one. So it does give me some comfort there. But at this point, I can stop sharing my screen and I can hand over to Jason. Thank you so much for your time and being here. Please feel free to use the Q&A box if you need to interact with the presenter.
All right. Thank you, Suresh. Really appreciate it. And let's go ahead and begin. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. It's going to be a back-to-school K-8 session. And since we have both elementary and middle school teachers on the line, I'm going to split it down the middle and walk you through a 4th grade lesson. And if you are a middle school teacher, don't worry. I'm going to share what is different about the 6 through 8 experience. You have some very unique features that I'm going to dig into as well. But the lesson model for Inspire Science is pretty much the same K through 8. So the lesson experience you see in grade 4 will be the same in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade with some changes, with some slight alterations that I'm going to share with you today. I know we have some existing users that have maybe been using the program for a year, and we have some brand new users as well. So I'm going to start as if you're using this program for the first time and introduce you to it, to how a lesson flows, what are some of the components of the program to help you as a teacher and to help your students. And then we're going to go online to show you how to navigate the online platform. Okay, we're going to try to accomplish all this in about an hour. So let's begin. Let's go. It will move quickly. Inspire Science is built on 4 interactive write-in student work texts. And what do I mean by interactive write-in student work texts? I mean, students are literally writing in these. They're journaling in these. They're collecting their data in these. That's because their labs are in these work texts. And we replace these every year for every student as long as you have Inspire Science in your classroom. Kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 4 per student per grade level. That's true in middle school as well. Here we have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Each one of these interactive work texts has a corresponding teacher's edition. So there's 4 teacher's editions as well that support each and every one of these units. These units, 4 per student per grade level, are broken down into modules. Now, if you want to think of the modules as chapters, feel free to call them chapters. I was with a teacher this past week that got confused by the term modules and thought that was very complicated. I said, just think of them as chapters. If you're used to using the term chapters, feel free to use the term chapters. And their district, instead of lesson, they like to use the word sections. So if you want to use units, chapters, sections, feel free to do that. We call them units, modules, and lessons. It's the exact same thing. A very familiar format. These are supported with a Spanish edition, Spanish resources, if that should be an issue to you. And this is a hybrid program. So what do I mean by that? Well, today we're going to walk through the print. There's a student edition for students, and there's a teacher's edition for teachers. But if you're a digital forward classroom, you have devices in students' hands every single day, we're going to walk through the digital experience as well. You can implement the program that way. And when you go online, there's all sorts of experiences for students. So here are just a few examples. Let me go through these, starting with the upper right. This is a lesson concept video. There are many of those, and we're used to seeing those in the programs, in science programs. There are virtual labs and simulations. In K through 5, mainly simulations. In 6 through 8, virtual labs and simulations. This is a phenomena-based program. This program supports NGSS or 3D instruction, so every module lesson begins with a phenomena. You'll see cross-cutting concept songs for our primary grades, STEM career kids, and an interactive ebook experience that brings all of this together. Now, let me give you a big picture view of how a module is designed. How does it flow from beginning to end? And this, I think, will help you get a little bit more accustomed to the lesson flow once we get in it. Every module begins with a 2-page module opener, okay, with a phenomena video right here. And I'm going to share one with you here in just a moment. From there, we go into a STEM module project launch. It's an introduction to the STEM project that awaits students at the end. At the end of the module, they have a STEM project. But why just have it at the end waiting? Why not introduce it at the beginning so it gives context to everything that follows? So we introduce it at the beginning, and then they have that STEM performance project at the end. All along the way, there are lessons, and we use the 5E lesson model in our program. Except Inspire Science has one additional step that you're not probably familiar with unless you've used the program. We begin with a science probe, a Page-Keeley science probe. That's an opportunity to identify misconceptions going into the lesson. After every lesson, we do a little project planning, and then at the end of all lessons, there's a STEM project that awaits. So let's take a closer look at what this looks like. We're going to walk through grade 4, unit 4. And again, if you're a middle school teacher, the way the lesson flows looks exactly the same for you. If you're a primary teacher, kindergarten, first grade, there are some subtle differences that I'm going to share for you as well. But mainly the lesson model is the same as what we just saw. So let's take a look at the pages. Every module begins with a 2-page module opener, okay? This is grade 4, unit 4, and the module is on information processing and transfer. It's all about how animals communicate and how humans communicate. And is it possible we communicate in some similar ways? So here it says, how does a lighthouse transmit a message across a distance? It says, go online to see clicks and echoes to see a phenomenon in action. So think about how humans communicate and how animals communicate. Okay? How does this lighthouse transmit a message across a distance? And maybe we'll see an animal example. That's a human form of communication. And maybe we'll see an animal form of communication in this phenomena video. Let's take a look at the phenomena video. Now, all teachers have access to a presentation tool, and that's what I'm in right now. Think of it as kind of like a PowerPoint. It's not PowerPoint. I don't want to make you think it's PowerPoint, but it's a presentation tool where you can walk students through the student edition. But embedded within this presentation tool, so this mirrors what we just saw in the student book. What's different from this presentation tool is now the video is right embedded here. So that video that was referenced in the student edition is right here in the presentation. It's called Clicks and Echoes. So it says check out Clicks and Echoes to see this phenomenon in action. So I can launch it here. So let's take a look at this video. Remember, how does a lighthouse communicate? And now let's see some animals communicate, and let's see if there's some similarities here. So this is a 3D phenomenon, which means I can manipulate the screen by moving my cursor. And we hear some animals communicating, don't we? Let's go down here. Looks like we've got dolphins down here. So if they're communicating, does that mean they have a language? And if they have a language, does that mean they have an alphabet of sorts? Do all dolphins speak the same language? And that I mean, does the dolphin on the Atlantic Ocean speak the same language as the dolphin on the Pacific Ocean? How do they perceive the language? I know I hear things through my ears, and then it sends signals to my brain makes sense of it, interprets it. I don't see ears on this dolphin. How do they hear? These are all questions students will have. Phenomena are designed to spark student-generated questions. So we begin every module and lesson with phenomena and an opportunity to talk about it at the end. So every module and lesson will begin with this type of an experience. Now, they won't all be 360 videos like you saw that you can manipulate, but they'll typically be a video or maybe an image or a series of images that students have to think about and ask questions about. From there, we go into the STEM module project launch. And so that's an introduction to the STEM project that awaits. There are two different types of STEM projects, science challenges and engineering challenges. This one happens to be an engineering challenge that's going to await students at the end of the module. And it's saying you're going to be hired as a telecommunications engineer, and it's going to be your job to design and build a device to send a message across the class. It'll go on to say that that device has to use either light or sound to transmit that message. So it's just an introduction here for the STEM project that awaits. And now students are thinking about the end goal at the beginning of the module. Now they know what the goal is and they're thinking about it all along the way. That's why we introduced it at the beginning. Now, if you're a K or 1 teacher, you're not going to see the STEM module project launch here. We didn't think it was developmentally appropriate for the primary grades. So instead of this feature that we call the STEM project launch, you're going to see a STEM career connection, hear about park rangers and landscape architects, and then you're going to see a word wall, a vocabulary activity. So instead of that STEM project launch, you're going to see a STEM connection activity and a word wall. But the rest of the module flows the same, K through 8. Okay, so that's a subtle difference for our primary teachers on the line here. From there, we go into the Page-Keeley probe experience. That's the first part of our lesson model. And we color code it purple. So wherever you see a purple edge page, you know you are starting a new lesson. Purple pages mean a new lesson is beginning. And so here we have a purple page. If you're flipping through the student edition, every purple page that you see is a beginning of a new lesson. This one is called Animalize. And so these probes are designed to uncover misconceptions, get students talking and thinking going into the lesson. And so we've partnered with a company, a lady called Paige Keeley. She's the former president of NSTA, and this is what she's about: formative assessment, student discourse, and misconceptions. This particular scenario says, two friends were talking about animal eyes. They noticed that animals that are active at night have very large eyes, and this is what they said. So you have a scenario that you have to consider in these probes, and then students have to decide who they agree with most and why. The two options are Laura. Laura thinks animals have large eyes to help them see in the dark. They do not need light to see. Is that correct? But Jaden has a different opinion. Jaden said animals like owls have large eyes to help them see in the dark. They still need some light to see. Now, the answers are going to be all over the place in the K-8 classroom. Okay, so this is a K-8 feature. But the answer isn't the most important part necessarily. Okay, sure, it's a part of it, but it's not the most important part. The most important part is the explanation. So now they're going to talk about it. We're going to get in groups. We're going to share our ideas, consider the ideas of our classmates. Each one of these is paired with a strategy that you can use, a strategy to group students and have them start talking in a productive and effective way. And I'll share with you what those are, where those are when we go online. But we have this great discussion going into the lesson. Now, we often pair these with videos to show what that might look like and some of the science going into this probe. So let's take a look at the video that supports this probe. Just a sneak peek of it.
We're going to talk about seeing things and how students see things, but I'm going to give you a warning right now. It's going to get dark because I'm going to turn off the lights. So what do students think about how you see things? Let's take a look.
I think your eyes see things because of parts in your body that help your eyes see things. If your eye sockets are good, then you can see them, and you can actually, your eyes can actually tell your brain what color it is.
Your eyes are like a mirror. Like, sometimes I do this to my sister, like I'll look in her eyes to see something, and it's so I can see in her eyes, but it's not like on the white part of your eyes. It's not on it's like somewhere on the brown part, and sometimes on your black thing. I know what that's called. just won't come to my mind, but it's you can see through that too.
One time I watched a video about eyes, and in the back of it there's like this little flashlight that lets you see everything, and I think that that's the little white thing that's in your eye that lets you see everything.
You can see in the video that students have different ideas about how they see things. A common idea is this idea of vision, where the eyes actually send stuff out to grab something and bring it back in some way, but the idea that it's about the eyes. And really it's about the light. So let me show you this diagram.
So there's a lot of video support along the way to support teachers on these lessons. And I mentioned strategies. One of them is a sticky note strategy. It's 1 about 20. Have students post their initial thinking on the board on a sticky note. Looks like half the class thinks Jaden and about half the class thinks Laura's the best answer. And we can revisit this at the end of the lesson. Every lesson will begin with a page Keeley probe experience. When you're flipping through the student book and you see a purple edge page, that means a new lesson is beginning. From there, we go into engage. We use the 5E lesson model. The first E is engage. And here we see a phenomena video as well. It says, how do eyes help animals see? It says, check out the eyes to see this phenomenon in action. Here's the phenomena in this PowerPoint. What is this cat looking at? Why are his eyes changing shape? Is there more or less light coming into the room? Is something getting closer or farther away? Is it possible the cat's communicating with another cat using its eyes? What the heck is going on? Again, these phenomena, videos, and sometimes images are designed to spark student questions and curiosity. What's going on? And then create a desire to figure out what's going on throughout the course of the lesson. That's the idea of a phenomena-based approach. Create questions and a desire to know, a desire to figure things out. From there, we go into explore, the second E. Every explore will be a hands-on lab or an investigation. And if we color code the probe purple, that means the beginning of a lesson. How do we color code our labs and investigations to make them easy to find? Well, we color code those yellow. So as you're flipping through the student edition and you see a yellow edge page, you know you're at a lab or an investigation. Why do we do this color coding? Why do we do it that way? Well, just to make the program easier to navigate. We teach 5 different sections, 180 days a year. It may not seem like a big deal, but it becomes a big deal over time. And that's quickly and easily finding what you're looking for, getting to a lesson opener quickly and easily, getting to a lab very easily. And that's why we do that color coding. Every lab and investigation will be yellow. We support these labs with videos. So in K-5, there's the inquiry teacher preview for you. We know many of you aren't science specialists. Some of you are math specialists, reading specialists, or maybe just a generalist. And that's great. Lab day can be a terrifying experience if you're just not comfortable with science, unless you have video support. I taught science, and when I was teaching science, I had to read my teacher's edition to try to figure out how to set up the lab. And that's kind of hard, you know, and you have to visualize it in your mind and then try to assemble it on the table in your classroom. And I was never really sure if I was setting up the lab correctly. Well, this inquiry teacher preview helps you do that. It will show you the science content background, how to set up the lab, what it should look like on the table, how to group students, what questions students will have, literally, and it'll go through the lab step by step so you can see it from beginning to end. Everything you need to do the lab successfully is in this inquiry teacher preview. The inquiry rewind is the same thing, except it's designed for students. So middle school teachers, you have a video as well. You don't have 2 different ones. You have one for both teacher and student that walks through the lab step by step from beginning to end, every single lab. For those labs that are too dangerous, too time consuming, too expensive to do in class, or maybe just logistically impossible, Inspire Science has virtual labs and simulations. In K-5, they're mainly just simulations. In 6 through 8, there's virtual labs as well. So you get both virtual labs and simulations. And I'll show you where those are when we go online shortly. Explain. Now we're in the third E. And here's where we see the content. So, you know, the content that we're used to in some very traditional old programs from 20 years ago, every lesson will begin with the content. Now in Inspire Science, before we get to the content, we've had a few experiences now, haven't we? We've had a module opener with that Phenomena Dolphin video. We've had a Page Keeley probe where we had a great discussion. We've had a lesson phenomena with those cat eyes, and we've had a lab investigation. So we've had all these great experiences and opportunities to communicate before we get into the content. And that's how Inspired Science is very different and special. We front load the lesson with these opportunities for investigation and communication. And here we see the content, and embedded within the content are opportunities to go online. So if you want to go online to watch a simulation or a video, you can do that. Those are opportunities. And then when we get to elaborate, it's always an extension outside of the classroom, typically to vocations, sometimes to engineering challenges in middle school or STEM careers in middle school. But this one happens to be a veterinarian in the grade 4 lesson. What does a veterinarian do? And so we have this STEM career kid that wants to talk about it. I got a little ahead of myself. Here's a STEM career kid. Her name is Ruby. She's only in K through 5. So if you're a middle school teacher, you're not going to see these STEM career kids in your program. We didn't think it was developmentally appropriate for them. But in K5, we did. And they share their passion for STEM careers with the K5 students. Let's hear Ruby, who wants to be a veterinarian.
Do you know what this is? Yes, it's an X-ray. In fact, it's an X-ray of an iguana. I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up. Then I will use technology like this to care for sick and injured animals. I want to work in a zoo. That way I can help all kinds of animals, even my favorite animal, penguins.
So Ruby is one of many STEM career kids. Notice there are videos for all of them. They're in the print. They can get discussions going. They can share or introduce your students to a STEM career, and one they may not know exists. And so we want our K-5 students to think about themselves as in the STEM future that awaits them. When we get to evaluate, we're going to revisit that probe. Boy, it looks like our thinking has changed, hasn't it? And that's what you'll find. The students' thinking will change over the lesson. They're not experts at the beginning of the lesson. We're just getting their initial thinking. And then they figure things out, and then they realize, well, maybe my initial claim wasn't quite accurate. We have them revisit their claim. And again, the sticky note is one of many strategies you can use these probes, and I'll share with you where those are. What you see on the screen are foldables. And if you're a veteran teacher, you're probably familiar with foldables. They're great for a STEAM initiative because you can see how artistic students can get with these. Foldables have been an exclusive McGraw Hill partner for about 20 years. And what they are three-dimensional graphic organizers where students fold paper and they use it as a note-taking tool. And you can make these portfolios of notes along the way. And so we've embedded these foldables within Inspire Science with videos on how to create these folds. They're great for science notebooking as well. We know many classrooms are doing science notebooking. You can tape or staple or include these foldables right within that science notebook. Opportunities to differentiate instruction are found throughout the lessons. You'll see them in the teacher's edition. This image is from the teacher's edition, and you'll see them all the way through the lesson. And for those students in the process of acquiring English language support as well. K-5 teachers, you have some literacy integration tools that you may not be aware of if you're new to the program. One is science paired read aloud. These are mainly for our kindergarten and first grade teachers. They're kind of like a big book experience where students are gathered around reading a book, except now you can project this big book. You don't have to have students gathered around. And we have a fiction component to it, and we have a nonfiction component as well. So students can get some more information in addition to the text on light and sound and how they are both energy. So there's fiction and nonfiction to these big book experience for our primary students. Leveled readers are for all K-5 students. Middle school, you do not have these leveled readers. These are a K-5 tool. They come in 4 different levels. Orange is approaching level. The spine that is blue is on level. Green is beyond level. And then we have purple for ELL. And what do these look like? Well, let's take a look. You'll see an essential question at the beginning, a paired read opportunity. There's fiction and nonfiction, depending upon which one you're in. There's a graphic organizer that students are going to create to find textual evidence and organize it throughout this level reader. And then at the end, right in the inside back cover, is an activity. And these are great for school to home as well. A lot of our users were using these activities at the back of the level reader during COVID and the pandemic, because a lot of them can be done at home. So consider that for that as well. Level investigator articles are for students in grades 2 through 5. And these are, I like to call them high interest magazine style articles that go through scientific breakthroughs and engineering discoveries and engineering breakthroughs here, I should say. So these are cool science, things like driverless cars and eye technology, things that students fascinate students and captivate their imagination. Each one of these will end with a task as well, that students can go online, maybe do some additional research. And as students go from lesson to lesson, they're getting a little bit of an answer to the puzzle. And remember, at the end of all lessons, there's that STEM project that awaits them. It's a science challenge or an engineering challenge. You might be asking, what's the difference between a science challenge and an engineering challenge? A science challenge is typically going to be like a research project, go online, get information, come back and report, maybe create a report on it or something. It's a web quest. The engineering challenge, students are actually going to design something, and they're going to be asked to use the engineering design process to actually build something or create a model that solves a problem. And so that's the difference. And then they're going to communicate their findings to the class. Every K-8 experience will have this flow. Remember, kindergarten, first grade teachers, you had that little difference at the beginning, but K-8, we have the consistent model. Test generating, you could do it on our test generator. Create a test in seconds. Now, do we have pre-made tests for you? Absolutely. I'll show you where those are when we transition online in just a second. But you also can create your own and have students take tests online. The benefit of them taking it online as opposed to using paper and pencil or pen is that the online test gets scored for you automatically, and you can generate some reports to see how students are doing. There's a 3D assessment guide as well, K through 8, as you can see up here. And these are more higher level rigorous questions, sometimes multi-step questions. If you're in guided practice, students have a 3D coach. See it right here, next to the question here, next to the question here. Every question has a little coach that gives students a strategy on how to be successful on this type of question. Because remember, they're a little bit more rigorous. Now, once students get proficient and get a little bit of confidence, they go into practice. And when they're in practice, the coach is gone. I don't see the coach right here. It has disappeared. But by now, they're ready for this because they've practiced in guided practice. And then they have unit tests, there's performance tasks, and these are all designed to be a little bit more rigorous to prepare students for any 3D assessment that awaits them. Now, middle school teachers, how is your lesson model just subtly different than what we've seen? Well, let's take a look. In middle school, you have a 2-page claim, evidence, and reasoning spread at the beginning of every lesson, right after engage. And so here, students are going to make an initial claim. They're going to support it with evidence along the way in the lesson. They're going to revise their claim if they need to, and typically they do, and then make a reasoning statement at the end. It's a 2-page spread in each and every lesson. In K through 5, you're going to see this claim, evidence, and reasoning just once per module, and it's a 1-page spread. So it's a little less prominent because K5 students just probably aren't ready for that developmentally, but middle school students certainly are. So that's a big difference. The other thing that you're going to see in K6 through 8 is that you have Learnsmart and SmartBook. Now, SmartBook is an adaptive, personalized learning solution. So what do I mean by adaptive? I like to explain what I mean, because I think everybody might have a different idea of what adaptive means to them. Kind of like rigor and inquiry. A lot of folks have a different idea of what these words mean. Well, think of Netflix when you think of adaptive. Think of Amazon or sites like that, where they're getting to know you a little bit better every time you go on to their experience. They're getting to know your likes, your dislikes, your preferences. Well, that's what Learnsmart is doing for your 6 through 8 students, except it's getting to know what they know and what they don't know. And it's prescribing a pathway to mastery. It creates a study tool experience for them. It pre-highlights the textbook. I've got ahead of myself here. Let me go back. It pre-highlights the textbook yellow with content that students need to study for this particular lesson. Here you see this. Once students have read, they've studied, they think they're ready for an assessment, it will ask them questions along the way. So questions will pop up. And not only do students answer the question, they have to say how confident they are going into the question. It will adapt to their performance. And students that have struggling areas, that highlighting in the book will turn blue, alerting students to those areas that they're struggling with. So it's a program that has them reading targeted pages and assesses them along the way and decides what they know and what they don't know and prescribes a personalized pathway to mastery. So let's take a peek at what that looks like. Let's say as a student, I'm going to go in as a student and I'm Jim here and my teacher has assigned me a Learnsmart assignment. Okay, so I'm going to go in as a student here and see what that looks like. So here's my Jim's home screen and I go into my assignments here and I see my SmartBook assignment on mass and volume. Okay, my teacher has targeted this assignment to just cover a couple topics. And as a teacher, you have the ability to make it over multiple topics or make it very specific. Now here it's just going to be 2 concepts. It's going to take about 4 minutes. If as a teacher, I wanted to create one that covered 5 concepts and maybe take 10 minutes, I could do that. I could focus in on the exact content that I think students need to study. And as a student, I could go into my reading here. And when I go into my reading, the content that's going to be a part of this Learnsmart assignment will be highlighted. So it looks like we're going to learn this assignment will be on mass. And if I scroll down here, it looks like it's going to be volume. Okay. And if I had more topics would be highlighted in this reading. And maybe the student read before they got to this, and that's fine also. So they could jump right into questions if they think they're ready. Now notice what it says here. Make progress by completing concepts. The number of questions will vary on your individual needs. So 2 different students might have 2 different pathways depending upon which questions they get right, which questions they get wrong. It's personalizing the experience for each and every student. It's okay to get questions wrong, it says. You'll still earn 100% if you complete all concepts by your due date. This SmartBook experience, it's not an assessment tool. I don't want you to think about it as that. It's a study tool. So everybody that finishes this experience will get 100 at the end. So this is a study tool, not an assessment tool. We have an assessment tool. This isn't it. And the last thing it says here is to submit your answers by selecting your confidence. This will not affect your grade. So it's important to tell students, hey, because students, you know, they think they want to be sneaky, and they'll say, okay, maybe my teacher wants me to say I'm very confident going in this. No. Tell students, hey, say if you're not confident, say you're not confident going into it. If you are confident, say you are. Be very honest. It doesn't affect your grade in any way. It's wanting to know what you know and what you don't know. Okay, so I'm going to say I got it. So what do we put here? Okay, this is I think a 7th grade SmartBook assignment. The amount of matter in an object, is the blank of the object. I'm going to say mass. And I'm going to say I'm highly confident down here. I always have to put my confidence. I got that one correct. Next question, okay? What is the amount of space a substance takes up? I'm going to say volume, okay? Now there'll be true, false, check all that apply, multiple choice, short answer, all of those experiences here. I'm going to say I'm medium confident. Now let's try something here. I'm going to try to get a couple wrong here. Let's see what happens. What is the amount of matter in an object? I'm going to say density. And I'm going to say I'm low confidence. Got that incorrect. Let's see if I get another one wrong. What is the amount of space? I'm going to say mass. Now notice what it does. If I get 2 questions wrong, it will say, hey, before moving on, you must review the resource. So it will not allow students to just start answering questions wrong, just to try to finish quickly. They have to go back and read some more, okay? And they have to go into the reading to get additional reading here. So it says, I've got some problems here. If it's blue, it means I've got some problems that I have to address. So it's highlighted those blue. And once I've gone in here and I've read some more, then I can go back into the questions for this experience and continue. Next question. And it's either finish or not finish. And if I finish, it will score me 100%. So this SmartBook experience, which you see here on my phone, on the phone, can be done on a laptop, a tablet. You just saw me show it on my laptop, any device. Anytime students can access this, and it will adapt their performance and guide them to mastery. So this has been an overview, a very easy lesson model. If you're a new user to this program, if you're a K-5 student, every lesson begins with that probe experience, remember? Engage will be a phenomenon, typically a video, sometimes a series of images. When we get to explore and explain, we've got labs and investigations, but you're supported with all that video support. When we get to elaborate, you might bring in a science period to read aloud if you're a K-5 teacher, K and 1 teacher, or an investigator article. And then when we get to evaluate, we have a STEM project that awaits us at the end, or maybe just a test that we generated on our assessment engine. Our middle school teachers, you have the same experience. We start with a probe, engage with the phenomena, labs, investigations. You might give students a smart book assignment, like you just saw me show for elaborate, but yours ends with a performance task as well. A very easy to get used to lesson experience that prepares students for success. So what does this look like online? We've been in the PowerPoint the entire time. Let's go online to get an idea of what this experience looks like on a teacher side. So before I do that, I just want to walk through the actual student book. So we were in a PowerPoint. What does it look like in a student book? Well, here's the student book pages here, just like it would look in your student book, where we have how does a lighthouse transmit a message across the distance? And here's that reference to the video. We go to the next page. Here's that STEM module project launch, that introduction to the STEM project that awaits them. Here's a probe. Next, purple edge page means the beginning of a new lesson. And so here we go into the engage, which means another phenomena. We go walk through the lesson. Yellow edge pages means lab. So just like you saw me show in the PowerPoint, our lesson flows the same way. Here's the claim, evidence, and reason. There's only one per module in K-5. And as we go through the lesson experience continues. Another lab here. Here's a STEM connection and elaborate. And then when we get to the end of the lesson, there's going to be an arrow that points back for us to revisit that probe. So how does the online experience support what we've been looking at? Let's take a look and introduce you to the online experience. Now, I'm going to back up just one step, and I'm going to enter my grade 4 class, okay? I enter my grade 4 class, and I'm going to get to a screen that looks like this. This is my dashboard screen. How do I know I'm in my dashboard screen? Well, it's the first screen that I see when I enter my class. Now, notice on the left-hand side, dashboard is shaded. One of the many navigational locations I have to go to as a teacher. Think of it as the home screen. Now, from this dashboard screen, one of the first things that, let's explore just a little bit here. In this dashboard screen, you're going to see an additional resources section. Here is an Inspire Science teacher community that you can go online and engage with other Inspire Science users and get support. Here's a little video. Here's a current events feature for Inspire Science that will take you to different current events that you could assign to students for a grade to bring the current events into your science instruction. Over here's a program guide. I would recommend downloading it, having it on your desktop. It will go through a lot of the features that we've gone over in this overview presentation. It'll help you get familiar with the program very quickly. It's 77 pages, all full color though, very easy to navigate and very visual. And if I scroll down here I have some different planning tools for my grade 4 class. Now, one of the first things a new user would know, you typically want to ask is, where do I find these resources, Jason? How do I get to them? I'm teaching a lesson tomorrow, and I need support for that lesson I'm teaching tomorrow. Well, there are two ways to get to your resources. One is search for resources. The other is browse course. Both of these two tools will take you to your resources. They just organize your resources differently and present them to you differently. Search for resources is a filtering tool. I can filter by keyword, by the lesson I'm teaching tomorrow, or maybe even resource type. And I can quickly and easily filter to what I'm looking for. Browse course is a digital filing cabinet. It opens up my digital table of contents. I can open up a module and then goes to my lesson filing cabinet this way. Let me show you both of these tools and how they're different. If I go to search for resources, let me click on that. So right now it's saying I have 1,474 resources available to me. That's everything. That's without any filtering. Sure, I could filter by keyword and type quiz. That filters it down to 144 resources. That's still an awful lot. That's not probably the best way to filter. If I scroll down here, I could filter by resource type and type in, click, let's say PDF. Or I still have 493 resources. That doesn't seem like the best way to do my first filter. So I wouldn't recommend using keyword or resource type for your first filter. If you're going to use this tool, start by just choosing the lesson you're teaching tomorrow. Filter down that way. To do it that way, click on the drop-down menu. So I'm going to go down to the lesson that we walked through, Information Processing and Transfer. So I'm going to choose the module first. Here it is down here. Now it's filtered down to 187. The second drop-down menu allows me to choose the lesson I'm teaching tomorrow. So I'm going to go the role of Animalize. That's the lesson we walked through. And now I'm down to 46 resources specific to this lesson. Now, if I want to add a keyword search like a quiz within this lesson, now I'm down to 4. Okay, so use the keyword search as your secondary filter. The first filter is choose the lesson that you're teaching tomorrow. I think that'll help you find what you're looking for quickly and easily. Now for this lesson, I've got 46 resources. Let's see how they're presented. Well, they're all presented in a long list. I know a lot of folks that love this resource list. This is how they find their resources. First thing that will always be on your list is your lesson at a glance. What is it? It's a planning tool. So if you teach science every single day, we have a lesson guide for you. We call it the full tract. But some of you in K-5 might be saying, you know what, I don't teach it every single day. I teach it 30 minutes a day, or maybe 30 minutes 3 times a week. For you, we've got flex tracks as well. So think of it as kind of a lesson planning tool with pacing, depending upon how often you teach science. Every search will begin with that. The next one is the Inquiry Teacher Preview. That's the video that shows us how to set up the lab, how to execute it, what steps there are, and it takes us through the lab from beginning to end. Okay? If I scroll down here, here are some of those videos that supports the probe. And then here is the probe strategy. So we front loaded with a lot of teacher support, okay, planning tools. And the strategies for the probes are right here. So what do those look like? Remember we saw the sticky note strategy? So every probe has a video or a couple videos that will share with you how you might implement the probe to get some organized, effective, productive discourse going in the classroom. So let me give you an example of what these look like.
Formative assessment probes provide an opportunity for students to engage in the scientific practice of argumentation. One of the strategies you might use to provide students with the opportunity to engage in argument is called Argumentation Lines. This strategy works best with probes that have 2 answer choices. After students commit to their answer choice and construct their explanations, have them stand up and form 2 lines. 1 line for answer choice A and 1 line for answer choice B. And then the students face each other in these lines and the argumentation session begins. So it starts off with a student on either line framing their argument, sharing their explanation, and students who agree with them can add to that explanation, or students on the opposite line can disagree and offer.
Just for the sake of time, I'll pause it there. So 2 different strategies, argumentation lines and 2 or 3 before me. These are suggestions that we say, hey, you might want to use those that strategy with this particular probe. And so here's that probe that we saw in the overview. I could choose to print this out if I want to, or I could choose to administer this digitally. I have a choice as a teacher. I have a PDF version, okay? Now this is in the student edition, so you don't have to print it out. You could have students write right within their student edition, but it is printable if you want to print it right here. And then here's my assignable digital version. Now if I scroll through here, here's every little section of my student edition is assignable. So think of what you can do. Not just the entire lesson, but just a little chunk of the lesson I could choose to assign as a reading assignment or an activity. So this probe, if I want students to, let's say, consider this outside of school and then come in with some cool ideas about this Animalize probe, that we took a look at here. Let's take a quick look at it again. Two friends were talking about animal eyes. Remember this one? I could assign this digitally to my students. And to do that, I come over here to these 3 stacked dots. And that's called the kebab menu. Now, the kebab menu is a feature that's found quite a bit on this online experience. So if you're asking yourself, I know I should be able to assign this resource, or I know I should be able to print this out, or something like that, and you don't see a button that explicitly says assign, see if there's a kebab menu nearby. So here I want to assign this. I don't see an assign button, but boy, there is a kebab menu right here. So let me click on it. Assign is an option for me. I click assign, and now I have some choices here. So I'm going to make this due on Wednesday, and I'm going to say complete and return to me. Come into class with ideas about how animals see. Okay, those are going to be my instructions. How many points do I want to make this worth? I'll make this worth 100. And do I want this to go to all of my classes? That will be my next choice. Absolutely. So I only teach 2 periods. So if I had a period 3, 4, 5, I'd have them all here in a list. And I don't want to create this assignment 5 different times for 5 different periods. So I'm just going to click select all and click assign. And now that has been assigned to my students. Our red bar appears next to that assignment, letting me know that I assigned it to my students. Now, when I assign something to my students, like I just did, that red bar appears. And for me as a teacher, it shows up in my assignment section. Here it is. There's a running list of all the assignments that I have open. It will show up in my calendar. Here it is. Now you might say, well, that doesn't look like a calendar, Jason. That looks just like a list. Well, that's because I'm in my day view. If I go to my month view, now it looks a little bit more like a calendar. Here's when I assign the probe. Here's what it's due. When I go to my dashboard screen or my home screen, it will show up there as well for me as a teacher. Why? Because there's a second calendar right here. It's a small one that shows up on your dashboard screen. So I go to my, what we've done so far is we've gone to search for resources. We filtered the suggestion I gave, and the best practice is to filter into the module first, then the lesson. I went to the wrong one here. Let me go one more down here, then the lesson. And it'll present your resources in the list. If you want to print a resource out, you can. If you want to assign the resource digitally, you can. To do that, remember, you click on the kebab menu, you click assign, and you fill out your answer choices. Okay. So resources presents our resources in a list. Okay. And we filter to find what you're looking for. So think of the resources as a filtering tool. Now, the second tool that we had here on the dashboard screen is Browse Course. I call the Browse Course a digital filing cabinet. Let me show you what I mean. I click on this, and I have a digital table of contents. I scroll down. I could go down to that same module, open it up, go to that same lesson, Role of Animal Eyes, and now instead of a list, I have essentially file folders, and that's what I call these horizontal lines. Think of these as digital file folders. So instead of presenting like 40-some resources in a list, it's organizing those 46 resources in my file folders. So I have lesson planning file folders, and here are those videos. Here's that probe strategy we looked at. It's in its own little folder. Here are those probe videos. Here is that inquiry teacher preview and that lesson at a glance. They all have their own folder. That's lesson planning. That's for me, the teacher, to get prepared for this lesson. The probe has its own folder. And we've already assigned this one from the resources list. So it already has the red bar next to it. But the point is, it has its own little digital file folder. So if you're a little bit more organized, you like to be a little, your resources to be a little bit more organized, the course view will probably be your preferred way to find your resources and to utilize them. But I can assign them the same way. So let's go to Explore and Explain, and let's say I want to assign this reading assignment. Let's just preview it first. I'm going to take a look at it, decide if I want to assign it. So these reading assignments, I'm here to see, I'm seeing what a student might see. Student has a speaker button available to them right here in the upper right. They can have this reading assignment read to them. they can click and drag on a section. And when they do, maybe they want this little section read to them. There's a speaker button here, or maybe they want to highlight it. They can highlight this section. So they've got some tools here available to them. I'm in page 1 of 4. If I go to page 2 of 4, I have a video embedded within this activity. And let's go to page 3 of 4. Let's see what else is here. Now they're going to respond to a question. And let's see what's in page 4 of 4. A little bit more reading. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want my students to read tonight. So to assign it, instead of clicking on the kebab menu in the course view, I've got an assign button here. So I click assign. I decide when I want it to be due. I'll say read, watch the video, complete, and return. Okay, those are my instructions to my students. I come down here, decide how many points I want it to be worth. 100, let's say. I want it to go to all of my classes. Absolutely. I'll click select all, and I click assign. So one of the differences between the resources search and the course search is that I've got an assign button. Okay. So let's back up just a second here. I've got my filtering tool called my resources, search for resources. It allows me to filter by keyword, resource type, but the first filter I would choose is the module and lesson that you want support for. Okay, so that's one tool. The second tool we learned about, let's go back here, is the courses search. And that's my digital filing cabinet. First, we go to the module, then we go open that up and go to the lesson. And it organizes my resources in a digital filing cabinet. Each one has resources that will support my students, okay? Now, these same two tools that we saw on the dashboard screen, same exact tools, resources, search for resources, browse course, they're also found here in the course view. So if you just want to go here to course, you have the exact same tools. Here's that resources tool, and here's my digital filing cabinet, okay? So I have my resources organized in two different ways. Search for resources, filtering tool, course view, digital filing cabinet. Once I create an assignment, they show up in my assignment section, and we've created 2 assignments here for my students, the probe and the read about. So what else is in this digital filing cabinet? Well, as a teacher, I have pre-made assessments. So if I go down here to evaluate, what do I have available to me? I have a pre-made quiz. So I could click on this one, and I have a lesson check that's ready to go. If I want to print it out and make copies, I can. Printed out quizzes is all I used as a teacher, but that was a few years ago. These quizzes are perfect. If you want to print them out and make copies for your class to assess them on this lesson, feel free to do that. We've got one for each and every lesson. But if you want students to complete a digital quiz, we've got that option available to you here as well. So I'm going to assign this digital quiz. Same options as we had before. Decide when you want to do, what students get this quiz. And then I scroll down here. Do I want to assign this to all of my classes? I'll click yes. And I click assign. And so now a red bar appears, as we've seen before. It shows up in my assignment section, as we've seen before. It shows up in my calendar. Let's take a look at my calendar. 3 assignments for my students. And it shows up in my dashboard. Why? Because my dashboard has a small little calendar. So we've created 3 assignments for our students. But it sure would be nice as a new user to see what students see when they go online. Well, let's take a look. Okay. I'm going to go into my student side. Okay, so I'm going to open up a window here. And I'm going to go in as my student Jim. And I'm going to log in. Now, this is a grade 4 student experience that I'm jumping in. So it looks a little bit different from that middle school experience we looked in just a little bit ago. So let's complete these assignments real fast, and I'll show you what it looks like on middle school as well. So I have a probe waiting for me. So this is a K-5 experience, much cleaner, much more K-5 friendly. And I have a probe here. Let's complete that as a student might. So I'm going to go in here to my probe. My teacher assigned it to me. I have to decide what answer I think is best and why. So I'm going to choose Laura. And I'm going to say, looks like I've already assigned this. So let me redo it here to show you what it looks like here. I think Laura is correct. Notice it's auto saving for me because animals make their own life. Now, obviously, that's an incorrect answer, but that's what a student might think. It's auto saves it for them, and I click submit. Okay, are you sure you want to submit? Yeah, I'm sure I want to submit. So that's been submitted to my teacher. Notice it's no longer in my to-do list. Now it shows up in past work. Okay, so K-5 students have a running list and K-8 students have a running list of what they have to do and then everything that they've already turned in. Let's do another assignment here. I'm going to go to this reading assignment my teacher has sent me. I open it up. Remember, as a student, I could have this read to me. Here's my speaker button. As you saw me show before, I could click and drag on a section, have that read to me. So students have some cool tools here. They can highlight it if they want to. Embedded within this, if I go to page 2, is that video in here, so I could watch the video.
Our eyes allow us to see some pretty spectacular things. Vibrant colors, cool shapes, beautiful scenes.
Okay, I go to page 2. I've got this cool little assignment for me, and it's just a part of the lesson, not all of it, just a part. And so when I'm done, I could submit that. So I forgot to submit it. Let's go back in here. Let me get to the end of it and submit it real fast. So it goes to my teacher for score. So now it's no longer in my to-dos. It's in my past work section. I go back to my home screen. I've got one more assignment here, and that's my lesson check. I go in here. I'm just going to answer a few questions here just to show you what an assessment looks like. So assessment, when you assign it, will look kind of like this. Students can start their assignment. I'm just going to answer a few questions randomly here for question 2. Notice this is a drag and drop where students are going to drag answers from the bottom to the top. So there's all different types of questions. True, false, multiple choice, check all that apply. Technology enhanced questions like the one you saw a little bit ago. This is a cloze question, C-L-O-Z-E, where students have a drop-down menu. Just showing you some of the variety of questions students will have in this experience. When I'm done, I'm going to click done. I'm going to click submit assignment. Okay, I view my scores. I didn't finish, so I didn't expect to do very well. Now when I exit out of here, now I have no more assignments waiting for me. They're all in past work. I'm going to exit out of this student experience. So what will I see back as a teacher after my students have submitted this? Will I go to assignments? Now I can see one person has submitted each one of these assignments, and I'm able to go in and see their scores. So if I go into this lesson check as an example, I'll scroll here, see my students who have submitted this. Looks like Jim has submitted this. Let me see how Jim's scored here. It will score that test automatically for me. Green is good, means I got these questions correct. Red means I didn't get this question correct. So there's a benefit to assigning a digital quiz, and that is it scores it for you automatically. You know, and as a teacher, I probably would have liked that. I have my test scored automatically. I spent hours upon hours grading print tests. So consider that. Every test that you assign has a print version and it has a digital version. I go to my evaluate folder down here in my digital file folders. Everyone will have a print version and have a digital version like the one you saw me assign. Now, really fast towards the end of this, I know we're at the end of our time. I just want to get into middle school just a little bit because I know we have some middle school folks here. Just to share with you, your teacher experience looks exactly the same if you're new to this program. So if I go into my teacher experience for grade 7, I have a dashboard screen, I have search for resources, I have browse course. They work the same way. If I go into my course view, here's my digital filing cabinet, and I can choose a module and a lesson that I want support for. It will organize my lesson into 5E lesson models. Now, all this looks the same way as that 4th grade teacher experience that we looked at just a little bit ago. If I go to evaluate here, I have a printable version of this lesson. I have a digital version of this lesson. And if I assign the digital version, it works the same way. So let me go ahead and assign this really fast. Now, the difference is what it looks like on the student side. So if I go in as a student here, I'll go in as Jim. And instead of going into my 4th grade Jim's class, I'm going to go into his middle school class. Here you'll see the student experience looks almost identical to the teacher experience. It doesn't have that K-5 look that we saw just a few moments ago. It looks very similar to teacher experience. Why? Because middle school students can handle a screen that looks like this. They're developmentally ready. They have an assignment section here. And just like in K-5, they have a past work section and they have a to-do section. So they go in their to-do section, they complete that, that quiz that we sent. I'm going to open up that lesson check. Here it is available to me. And when they open it up, it will look just like we saw in K-5, letting them know how many questions and when it is due. And here we have that quiz available to me. Okay. Now, there are some tools that you can also activate in these quizzes, things like a line reader, text to speech, which is pretty cool, but we won't have time to go through today, but we can in a deeper dive a little bit later. And here I can go from question to question, just like we saw before. I'm at the end of my time. This has been an introduction into McGraw Hill's Inspire Science program. And I know we probably have a bunch of questions because I went right through. I wanted to make sure we covered as much ground as we can because I know we had some new users that probably not used this program at all and needed an introduction. But Suresh, are there any questions that I could answer here?
Thanks, Jason. I know there was a lot to cover and you actually, yes, did rush through it, but thank you so much for covering everything for us that Inspire Science has to offer.
Yes, you bet.
And you're right, sir. We do have a couple of questions that came in. The first one is actually both of them are related to Learnsmart. So Learnsmart is accessible for kids, or do the teachers have to assign this?
Oh, that is an awesome question. Okay.
I know I didn't want to answer it, and I said, you know what? Then Marisa asked us again, and I said, I think it's better if you cover it for everyone.
Yes, I'm glad that question was asked. I'm going to go to grade 7 here. And I'm going to give you a best practice. That's what I like to do in these trainings because there's ways of doing things that you might learn the hard way, and I don't want you to learn the hard way. So if I go to my course view, okay, I'm going to go to my course view in grade 7, and I go to a module here. So the way to assign Learnsmart effectively is to go to assignments. Okay, this is how I suggest you create it. Now I'm going to delete the one that I created here before, just so we don't have any confusion here. Okay, and so you go to assignments over here on the left, and you click Add Assignment. Okay, that's the first thing you want to do. Go to assignments over here on the left, click Add Assignment. Now down here it says SmartBook 2.0. Okay. So now do I want to create a new assignment or view assignment? I'm going to click on New Assignment. Next thing I do is come down here and choose, okay, what modules or chapters do you want to be a part of this assignment? I'm going to say, oh, how about classification of states of matter? Now I have to choose something or my continue button here won't light up. So I'm going to choose this, and now it lights up here. Okay. Now from here, I get to target my assessment, or not assessment, my assignment. So notice it says right now, what I've chosen, 59 concepts. It's going to take students up to 106 minutes. That's way too long. Okay. With SmartBook, you want to create a targeted assignment, maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. So here I get to reduce the scope. So I'm going to say, you know what, we haven't got to lesson 2 yet, so I'm going to deselect that. Notice the scope has gone down as I deselect these lessons. Okay, we haven't got to lesson 2, 3, and 4. So we're in just lesson 1. Still up to 38 minutes to complete this assignment. I'm going to reduce the scope even more. I'm going to make it very targeted. So now I get to choose what content that I want to be a part of this. What gives each state of matter its unique properties? Okay, yeah, let's cover that. So I'm going to deselect these. Now we're down to something a little bit more manageable, right? If I stop here, 4 to 5 minutes, 3 concepts, maybe I want to keep it there. But I can even drill down even further and decide, do I want all 3 of these ideas to be a part of this? I have complete choice as to what content I want to be a part of this. But this works for me. 4 to 5 minutes, 3 concepts. I click continue. From here, you're going to see what I like to call the assignment wizard screen, which is a screen we've seen many different times so far in this training. I give it a name. I'm going to call this SmartBook assignment. I decide when I want it to be due. How about on Wednesday? How many points I want it to be worth? Remember, if they finish this, they get full credit. Who do I want to receive this? There will always be share with Google Classroom buttons all along the way. I haven't used that yet, but I could if I wanted to. Do I want to copy to my classes? Yes. I click assign. Now, this assignment will be waiting for my students. If I go see it on their side, let's just review what that looks like. I go to my.mheducation.com. I'm going to go into as a student. I'm since SmartBook is only for middle school, let me go into my 7th grade. Go to his assignments. Here's that SmartBook assignment waiting for him that you just saw me create. I open it up and let's take a look at what it looks like on his side again. Again, he'll get that prompt. Now, does he want to go into the reading or the questions? Now, you might have students that jump right into the questions, and that's fine. Maybe they read in the student edition or the reading essentials that's available. And if they think they're ready to go into questions, they can go into questions. That's perfectly fine. Or if they need to read here, they can start in the reading and it will target their reading. Remember, it will highlight the content that will be a part of this, this experience. Okay, so this is the content that's going to be part of it. Okay. And then when they're ready, they can go into questions. That prompt will come up. And again, it's real important, I think, to tell students, because students will like to game the system. They think they'll get an advantage if they think what they want you to hear. Tell them, hey, this is not an assessment. This isn't for like your grade on your report card. Tell it how honest, how confident you are. If you're low confidence, say you're low confidence. If you're high confidence, say you're high confidence. Okay, just do your best. SmartBook is designed to help students. It's trying to help you. Be honest with it. And so here we choose our answer choices and our confidence level. And at any time as a student, at any time, I could go back into the reading, okay, and get some more reading. So you might say, like, I have teachers that tell me that have in their mind that this is an assessment tool, okay? And then when I show them this reading here that students can go in and read, I say, this isn't an assessment tool. This is a study tool. So, you know, if it was an assessment tool, they wouldn't be able to go in and read. They'd have to answer the question and get it right or wrong. Here, they're allowed to go back into the reading. This isn't the assessment tool. It is a study tool, and it's adapting their performance. So I'll have all those questions embedded within there. So that was kind of a long explanation, but the short review of what we just learned, let me go back as a teacher here. So I'm back on my teacher side, is you want to start here in assessments or assignments rather, click add assignment, go to SmartBook, click on new assignment, decide what unit you want to be a part of this, come down here and click continue. And from here, you get to select and deselect what content you want to be a part of this. Now, it's important, I think, to share what are my use case scenarios for Learnsmart. How can I use this in my classroom? Well, there's all different types of uses. Let me give you a couple. One, how about a flipped classroom? You assign a SmartBook assignment. Let's say you're going into cells next week. You assign a SmartBook assignment on cells this week. So students are reading, they're answering questions. You get an idea of what their prior knowledge state is and what they're coming into your lesson, what knowledge they have coming into the lesson, and where students are strong and weak. Okay, that's one way of using SmartBook. The other way is you use it concurrently with your lesson. You're in cells this week. You send a SmartBook assignment those nights to see what students retained from that day, just to reinforce what they've learned. That's a perfectly good use. The third way is maybe reviewing for a test. You were in cells 2 weeks ago, and you're worried that students forgot everything they learned about cells. Assign a SmartBook assignment to review, refresh their memory. Now they have to go in and read, they have to answer questions, and now they're better prepared for that test that's awaiting them. All three are perfectly great use case scenarios for SmartBook, and they're all perfect. You might use them all in your classroom. Okay, so but to create them, start with assignments, go to Add Assignment, and then click SmartBook. Suresh, any other questions?
Jason, can we add assessment questions from our side?
Can you add questions from your side?
That is correct.
Okay, as a teacher, you're unable to add questions into SmartBook. Okay, you have the questions that are there. No questions can be added. Now,
Right.
if you want to add questions, you can always add questions to our assessment section. We haven't spent a lot of time here, but here this allows you to create assessments. And I can add questions here, just not in the SmartBook that we just looked at.
Okay, I think can we add assessment questions from our side? So yes, we can add assessment questions, correct?
Assessment questions, yes.
Perfect.
Yes, so in assessments here, really fast, I'll make it a short answer this time. I have assessments, as we saw, in my folders. I've got my module assessment folders, has my module tests, okay? If I go into a lesson within that module, we saw in our file folders, if I go to evaluate, I've got lesson quizzes. So I've got these assessments in my file folders. The other location for my assessments is right over here in the assessment section. Same quizzes and tests that we just saw in those file folders, just in a different location. Now, the benefit of assigning them here and not up here in my digital file folders, if I assign them here, I've got an additional option. Let me show you what I mean. This lesson check, synthetic technology. I could have assigned it up here in my digital file folder. Okay, I could have assigned it there. But if I assigned it there, I wouldn't have had this option that I will have right now. Let me show you what I mean. I click Assign. Now, down here at the bottom, I've got student settings. It only shows up down here in my assessment section. It does not show in those digital file folders. And if I open that up, here it unlocks those tools like text-to-speech, line reader, maybe a calculator for some of our physical science lessons in middle school. Text-to-speech, K-5 students love it, or some of them really need it. I can randomize my question order. So it allows me to do some things here at the end, and then I could click Assign. Okay. So I have to be down here. Now, to answer the question, can I add my own questions? Absolutely. So let's say I want to create a new assessment. And I'll call this Back to School Assessment. And I click Create Assessment. Now my assessment has a name. It just doesn't have any questions in it. How do I get questions in this test? So let's say you want to pick and choose the questions you want to be a part of this test. Well, if it were me, I'd probably start with McGraw Hill questions because I don't want to create 100 questions on my own or 10 questions on my own if they've already been created. But so let me start with McGraw Hill test questions. So I'm going to go into material science. I'm going to go into McGraw Hill's module tests. I'm going to preview this. I'm going to add a few McGraw Hill questions by clicking on this add button. I like question 1. I like question 2. I like question 3. And do I like question 4? I don't like question 4. So let me move forward. I do like question 5. And question 6. So I'm going to start with McGraw Hill. I've got 5 questions here. But now I want to add my own question. So I click on question and I click create new question. What type of question do you want to create? How about a multiple choice question? I've got all these choices of different types of questions, including like an audio recording, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go just create a multiple choice question. Whatever type of question you want to create, it sets up a template for you.
Thank you.
And it'll create a template for you. And you just choose choose the answer choices here. So the sun rises in the, I'm just going to type north, south, east, west, choose the correct answer, east, and now I've created a new question in my test. So the short answer is yes, you can create questions. Once I have the test the way I want, I click save and exit. Every test that you edit or create from scratch, like we just did, we created from scratch, will show up in my assessments folder. That's my folder for all of the assessments that I've created or from scratch, or modified. Here it is. And once I have it here, kebab menu, I could print it out from here, or I could assign it from here.
Thank you, Jason, for showing us
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take one last question. I know we're off time, and you actually, Jason, have another session now in what, 45 minutes?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
one last one, actually, and because two people asked this one, I'm just going to ask. It says, can we send the feedback to the students directly? And also just similar questions regarding that was, how will my students get the feedback?
How
How can the students see their feedback? Is it a self-check?
okay, good question. I could take this a couple different ways here. So their feedback can be provided when the assignments come in. I have the ability to create a note for my students. Okay, I didn't do it when I graded, when I took a look at the grades, but I could create a note for students. When they take an assessment like this lesson check, it will tell them scores. And as a student, as a teacher, I could have assigned this quiz in a way that would have given them feedback on their end when they took the score. So that's something that I can activate as a teacher if I want to. For instance, students could get a rationale for why they got it wrong or whether they get it right. So I could create a note. I could create a rationale with assessments. And those are the two main ways of communicating back to students within the platform: notes and rationales for assessments.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And thank you everyone for your time and joining us today. This is the end of our session. That is for Inspire Science K-8. If you have your colleague, anyone wants to join the session, that's for 9 to 12. We have it in about 40 minutes. Please feel free to join us. We also have a couple of other back to school webinars that we're running this week and the next week. I'm going to drop the link in the chat box for you. And I know a lot of people had asked us for the recording. Thank you, Jason, for that heads up right in the middle of the beginning of our session. So yes, we will be sending you the recording of the session as well as the certificate. So thank you so much for joining us and see you next time. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Suresh. Good to be with you all. Take care. Let us know how we can help.
Bye. Thanks.